Bonjour, welcome to Wahsa Distance Education Center's radio Zoom classes. This is MEL3E, grade 11 workplace math, and I'm the teacher Bronwyn Slate. If you'd like to participate live today, you can call the Wahsa studio at 1-800-465-7144 or 737-4017. You can listen on the radio at 91.9 FM and also on the television at Bell Express View channel 972. You're always welcome to join me live through the Zoom link, which is available from me, your teacher, and also your DEC. Our classes are scheduled Monday through Thursday from 9 till 10 in the morning, and we are in our 5th week of our 9-week course. As we are about halfway through our course, it's important to start submitting your work for marking. So a reminder that the support questions, the ones with the little pencil icon, are not for marking. You decide which ones and how many to do. If you're understanding a concept, feel free to skip questions. You don't have to do them all just because they're there, but they are good practice to make sure that you are understanding the concepts. So also, if you need more practice, please feel free to ask me, and I'm happy to send you more practice if you need it. The key questions, however, the ones with the little key icon, are the ones to submit for marking. These questions you need to do all of. I'm grading all of them, so please do them all. Also, you need to show all of your work, your steps, and your thinking. This way I can truly understand what it is that you understand. And if you're making errors, it gives me more information about how I can help you. So just give me the answer. It gives me very, very little information. And I can't give you part marks. If you make a mistake, you either get it all right or all wrong. But if you show me your work, then I can give you part marks if I can see what error you've made. So then how do you submit your work for marking? There's 3 methods. The first is to scan your work in and send it electronically. If you have a device, you can scan your completed work in through your device. Apple devices have a Notes app, which is free and has a scan function, and Android devices has the Google Drive app, which is free and has a scan function. Both of these are fairly straightforward and mostly just point and click. Scanning it makes the file smaller and a little bit easier to send. So that's why I encourage you to do that. If you're unable to scan and you need to take pictures, that's fine too. Whatever works best, I can make happen. Scanning just makes my life a little bit easier. Then you can send it to me through either email at studentwork@nnec.on.ca and CC it to bronwyn.slate@nnec.on.ca. Or you could send it to me through Facebook Messenger to bslatewasa. The second method is drop your work off in Sioux Lookout. We have an outdoor mailbox at our 74 Front Street location. We are the bright red building next to the post office, and we have a small white mailbox next to our side entrance. We're not yet open to the public, so just put your work in there at any time and I will get it and get it back to you as soon as I can. The third method is to hand your work into your DEC. Your DEC can either send your work through the Express or fax it to 807-737-1732 or toll-free fax to 1-800-463-7852. If you'd like to connect with me through social media, you can friend me on Facebook and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Both are under the name B Slate Wahsa. This way, when I upload one of our recorded radio Zoom classes, which I record every day, then you'll get notifications either through Facebook or YouTube letting you know that it's there. This way, if you miss a lesson or you'd like to go back to the replay, it's really easy and accessible for you to find it. All of our radio Zoom classes are in a playlist called MEL3E, and everything that you need is there to support you. I also have short videos explaining common errors and confusing concepts, so that is a good place to go if you're struggling with something and it's a good place to start. If you're looking to try to find some help and you can't get in touch with me, it's a good place to start. Math is a really visual subject, so I strongly encourage you to access the videos. This is going to set you up for the most success and help you have a complete understanding. Just listening to me is not going to really give you it's going to give you just a portion of the experience. So either join me live and watch, even if you're quiet and not talking to me, that's fine. Or you can watch the YouTube replays That's totally fine as well. If you don't have reliable internet or aren't able to access YouTube videos, let me know and I'm happy to send you a copy of the recordings just to help you get set up. All right, so if you have any questions or concerns, please reach out and contact me. My email address is bronwyn.slate@nnec.on.ca. That's spelled BRONWYN.SLATE. My Facebook is B Slate Wahsa. You can call me at the office at 807-737-1488, extension 2209, or toll free at 1-800-667-3703. My office hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. But if you'd like some support outside of those hours, let me know and we can see if we can arrange something that works for both of us. All right, today we are starting lesson 11. We are into unit 3, which is credit cards. So the learning goals are that at the end of this lesson, you will be able to make and justify decisions to borrow from credit card companies. You will understand the various credit card costs, and you'll be able to explain the effects of carrying a balance on a credit card. You know you've met those learning goals because you can identify the pros and cons of credit cards. You can explain annual fees, APRs, cash advance fees, and minimum payments, and you can calculate the cost of carrying a balance. So when will you use this in real life? Well, we're making connections and seeing patterns. Most likely money is something that you have to deal with in your life. Many of us have credit cards, as there's many things that it's easy to pay with if you have a credit card. Though I recently just have heard that they're going to increase the fees because if you use it at a store, usually the store pays a fee for having you be able to use the credit card. And now they're thinking of changing it so that the customer has to pay that fee. I just heard about this. I don't know too much about it, but something important to pay attention to. So making these connections and seeing the patterns of what the costs are when you're using a credit card is really important, as well as making connections and seeing patterns in your life in general. But just being aware of the fees involved with a credit card is going to really help you in terms of how you are actively using your money. But first, let's do some mental math and activate our brain. So I don't believe in mad math minutes. They cause the folks stress. They don't teach any skills generally. They just either reward people who can memorize and move quickly or do facts quickly, but they don't teach anybody anything generally. So we don't do mad math minutes in my class. We instead work on developing strategies that we can use and apply in various situations and help you understand how it works. So our question today is 47 times 23, and we're going to use the strategy of partial products. So what the idea about this is that we are going to break our numbers up into the parts and multiply the parts. So you can do this in various ways. I like to organize my numbers. This is a tool for writing it down. You can still do this mentally, but I'm going to say, okay, 47 is the same as 40 plus 7. And then 23 is the same as 20 plus 3. And I've organized these numbers on the outside of like a grid. And every time I see a plus sign, I'm going to draw a line so that I have this little box that shows all of the combination of numbers that I need to multiply. So I need to do 40 times 20, 40 times 3, 7 times 20, and 7 times 3. These are all of the parts that I need to multiply in order to do 47 times 23. But they're a little bit friendlier when I've broken them up in these parts. So I do 40 times 20, and I know that 4 times 2 is 8. And I know that 40 times 2 is 80. And so I know that 40 times 20 is going to be 800. So using some of the skills that you have from other strategies we've used can help you here. Then I'm going to do 7 times 20. So 7 times 2 is 14. So 7 times 20 is going to be 140. Then I'm going to do 40 times 3. 4 times 3 is 12. So 40 times 3 is 120. And then 7 times 3 I know is 21. I do know my facts, the basic facts below 12, so I don't need to use other strategies, but if you need to use other strategies to figure these out, you totally can. So now I have inside my box, I have all of the parts of this multiplication answer, but I need to add them up because I can't, they're not just separate. So I can write them out or I can just add them up in my head. So I have 800 plus 140 plus 120 plus 21. Well, if I look at this, I say 800 plus 100 is going to be 1000. 40 plus 20 plus 20 is going to be 80. And 1, oops, it's going to be 1. So 47 times 23 is 1081. And that's how you use partial products, which is very similar to the classic algorithm, but it just makes a little bit more sense opposed to the algorithm. It generally is just following steps. This is logical to me. All right, what prior learning understanding do we need to know today? So we need to understand a little bit about, it's important to understand a little bit about credit ratings or score when you are talking about credit cards and when you're applying for a credit card. So your credit score is a 3-digit number that represents how likely a credit bureau thinks you are to pay your bills on time. It can be an important part of building your financial confidence and security. 2 main credit bureaus are Equifax and TransUnion. So how to maintain or improve your credit score is establishing a credit history, pay your bills on time and in full, avoid applying for too much credit, and stay within your credit limit. So this is interesting because some folks think that, oh, it's just better to not have any sort of credit, so never getting a credit card, not applying for any loans ever, and just not ever tapping into those resources, which if you have enough income, you have enough of your own money that you never need to have, like you always have enough money to buy big purchases, then okay. But most of us can't afford to buy a house 100% with cash or a car with cash. So having a credit history shows when you are looking for these sorts of things, having established credit history helps you so that the place that you're trying to ask for a loan knows that you are good and reliable to pay your bills back on time. So it helps you to have a some sort of credit history. You just need to use it wisely. So here is actually what a credit score looks like. This is often this sort of range. In Canada, it ranges from 300 to 900. I don't know how it's calculated. But you don't need to know how to calculate it. Just having an understanding of what is good and what is poor helps you understand. Anything higher than 660 is thought of as a good credit score. So that means that if you're in that 660 range, you have a reasonable chance of getting approved for credit, and you might even get pretty good interest rates. The higher your value, your higher your credit score, that shows that you're very good at paying your bills back on time, and you are a good, reliable bet for them to give you credit, to give you free money, it seems like, but you're paying it back, so it's not actually free, and you'll get better chances of getting approved and possibly better rates, interest rates. No one has 900, a score of 900. It's not realistic. Getting a score in 800s is really good. If you have a score of 300 to 559, you are in the poor category, and so you'll have a really hard time getting any loan or credit product, a credit card or anything like that, because you're not showing that you are reliable. Your history isn't showing that you have a lot of credit that you've paid back consistently and on time and full amounts, and so you are a big risk. And so that's how a credit score works. So though we aren't actually calculating credit scores, it's just important to understand when we're talking about credit cards and loans, as it sort of works in the background. So what is our new concept today? So let's look at credit cards. So a credit card is tied to a credit account that a financial institution So it could be a bank or just a credit company. So when you use a card, you're borrowing money from the credit card issuer. So they are upfronting the money and you are committing to pay it back with interest if you don't pay it back within the time frame that is usually a month. You can use a credit card to purchase goods or services with any merchant that accepts credit cards. So not everywhere accepts credit cards, but it's becoming more and more common that most stores, most places that are providing services have the option to use a credit card. In Canada, the 3 main credit card companies are Visa, MasterCard, and American Express. But they also can go through different places. So you can have a Visa that is a credit union Visa, or you can have a Visa that is a TD Bank Visa, or a Visa that is a CIBC Visa. It's still a Visa, but it's attached to a different bank or credit union. So banks, credit unions, and even stores, so like Costco or Walmart or Loblaws, they all have relationships with the credit card companies and have said, okay, we're going to have a Walmart MasterCard. And so it's still MasterCard, is accepted everywhere that MasterCard is, but it's tied in with Walmart. I don't really understand how those relationships work, but it's just something to realize. Okay, so understanding a bit of the vocabulary is important because it's not necessarily something that you think about all the time. So your credit limit is the maximum amount you can owe at a time. So you can't, this is your limit, the top amount that you can borrow and owe to that credit card company. You can have multiple credit limits on multiple cards, but that can get dangerous and it's not a great idea. Start with one card at a time. So your balance is the amount you owe on your credit card. Available credit is the difference between your credit limit and your balance. So your credit limit is the most that you can borrow, and your balance is what you've already borrowed. So your available credit is what you still have that you can borrow. The APR is the annual percentage rate. So this is your interest rate that they just call your APR in terms of credit cards. It's the annual cost of borrowing money with your credit card. A cash advance. A cash advance is when you use your credit card at like an ATM or an ABM and you take out cash. So you are borrowing, instead of you are making a purchase, you are just taking out cash. Generally, cash advances have incredibly high fees. I strongly discourage you from using them. It's going to be super expensive to pay things back on your credit card. It is not free money. It is money that you're going to owe lots and lots on. So really, really, really need to be cautious about how you use cash advances. Balance transfers are when you move a balance from one card to another and receive a lower interest rate. So if you might get a deal that says if you transfer your balance from your MasterCard to a Visa card, then we will give you a low interest rate. It's like an incentive, a way for credit card companies to get your business. And then the minimum payment is the minimum amount you need to pay by the due date, or else you will be charged a fee. So you get charged interest if you don't pay all of it, but if you don't pay the minimum amount, they're going to charge you a fee. And if you continue to not pay the minimum amount, then this is going to have an effect on your credit score. So then your credit score is the number that rates your credit worthiness. So how good you are at paying back, how reliable you are at paying back the money that you've borrowed, how much of a risk you are. Okay, so why would you have a credit card? So it's really useful for emergencies. Life happens and all of a sudden your furnace breaks and it's January and you need a new furnace. Most of us don't have a couple $1,000s just sitting around ready to do big purchases like that. So sometimes you need to use a credit card for those sorts of emergencies. If you're buying a big ticket item, so if you are buying a new couch or a stove or something like that, using your credit card is, again, you generally have a higher limit on your credit card than on your debit cards. Your debit card often has limits about how much money you can spend in a day to keep you safe. So a credit card has a bit more flexibility usually. It's important for establishing credit, like we talked about before, in terms of showing financial institutions that you are a reliable source of paying back your debts, so that if you need a loan or if you want a loan like a mortgage or something bigger, that you are a good bet for paying back that large amount of money. It's safer than cash. If you lose your credit card, you can cancel it and you haven't lost any money. If someone steals your credit card, you can put a stop on it, and so then nobody can use it. You need a PIN or to sign for it. So it's not just cash, which could belong to anybody. If you see, it's like if you're walking around and you see a credit card on the ground, you're probably not going to try to use it. If you walk around and you see $100 bill on the ground, you're probably going to pick it up and spend it, because no one's going to know whose $100 bill that was. So it's just safer to have a credit card than always only use cash. If you are buying plane tickets or making reservations at a hotel or a car rental, often you need a credit card to confirm and to commit to that you are going to pay that, or you're actually going to show up. It's a protection from fraud on the internet. So if you are purchasing things on the internet through your credit card, there are secure, different credit cards offer different options in terms of how secure. So some things, like if you say, I didn't actually buy this thing, this never came to me, then your credit card will often give you back the money and be on your team for figuring out that, opposed to if you just buy something off of buy and sell and you're with a person and the person, you send them an email money transfer and then they never gave you the thing that you were supposed to buy, you have no protection there. So credit card companies use compound interest. So like we were talking about in lesson 9, compound interest, this is the tool that credit card companies use to calculate the interest. They remember compound interest, when you're having debt, it means that they're going to make more money because they're loaning you money and you're borrowing it. So they are the ones who are going to make the money. So they're going to compound it in order to get more money from you if you don't pay back your loan. So remember, the formula is A equals P times 1 plus R over N all to the exponent NT, where A is your final amount, P is the principal, the amount that you borrowed, your R is your interest rate, which always is expressed as a decimal, your N is the number of compound periods per year, and the time is T is time in years. So these letters mean the same thing, just that when we're talking about credit cards, our principal is the amount borrowed opposed to the amount invested. Okay, so before you even are able to actually use a credit card, you need to apply for one. You need to convince the credit card company, the bank, the financial institution that you are a good bet for them to loan you, to give them you the ability to borrow money. So this is on page 3 of your IEL booklet, and this is one example. This is a Scotiabank credit card application form that I found online that shows you what sort of information you need for to apply for a credit. So you need 2 forms of ID, government issued ID, so they know that you really are you. This is part of how they avoid fraud, and possibly a utility bill, which is a proof of where you live, and a job letter or pay slip to show that you are making an income. So these are all things that prove that you are who you say you are and that you have an income, that you're able to pay back your money that you borrow. Then there's just sort of information about who you are, where you live, your family, contact information, your employer, how much do you make. If you want a co-application for your spouse, if you and your spouse are applying together, then you get their information. And then your financial information in terms of if you own your house or you're renting, how much that costs you. Do you have any other loans, any other credit cards? This information they want to know to see how much debt you already have. So that's just a breakdown of an application. So that's key to just understand how it works. And you now are able to answer the questions 1 and 2 on page 4. So when you're choosing a credit card, what are you looking for? And this is on page 5 of your IEL booklet. So you want a lower or a manageable interest rate. Most interest rates are pretty much the same, but it's always good to pay attention to see if how high it is and if it's something that you can compare it to other ones to see if it's really, really much higher or really, really much lower, or if it's pretty much normal. I strongly encourage looking for one with no annual fee. You can get a lower interest rate if you pay an annual fee, but that means that you only end up paying interest if you carry a balance, if you use the card and you don't pay back all of the money that you borrowed. An annual fee you pay every year, no matter what, no matter if you use it or not. So I've never found a use for having one with an annual fee. It's something that you can decide for yourself. Having a free credit score tracker, which can be under FICO, can be useful to know what your credit score is. This is something that you might be interested in. You might not be. Having a no or low security deposit. I've never experienced having to have a security deposit for a credit card where you have to pay and say that you are committing that this is how much money they can hold on to until you have shown that you're able to pay back your credit cards. I would never do that. If you have any rewards, if you're always grocery shopping at Loblaws, then getting a Loblaws card means that you might get points so that you can then get free groceries, things like that, or Costco or gas, that can be really useful. So thinking about where you're going to use it is really important. So getting one that has travel air miles or some sort of travel reward point system for a company that you use a lot of the time can be really great, because if you are flying a lot, then you can use those points to fly, or grocery shopping or gas. Those are other really common ones. So thinking about where you're going to use it might make the most sense. So now you can do question 3 on page 5. So then actually making payments and delaying payments, what does this look like? This is where the numbers come in. So it's really important to understand the cost of borrowing from a credit card company, because many people think, oh, it's free money, great. But there are lots of costs associated. And this is on page 5 of your IO booklet. So if you do not immediately pay back the money you have charged on a credit card, you begin to be charged interest. By immediately, I mean within the set timeline, which is generally 30 days, which generally is a month. So it's not as in I use my credit card right now, and then I need to pay it back within 5 minutes. I mean within a month. So there's a legally mandated information box on all credit card applications that spell out the associated and potential costs. They have to tell you what your costs are going to be. If they don't tell you, then they are not following the law. So I strongly encourage you not to skip reading the fine print. We all skip reading the fine print. I do it all the time in terms of terms and conditions online. It's awful. I do it. It's really important not to skip reading the fine print, because this tells you how they're going to charge you money. So here is one example of a part of an information box. So if they have a promotional rate, if they're telling you that something that they're giving you a deal, that's going to be at the top, but that is something that's going to probably end. So here where it says balance transfers are 1.99% for the first 10 billing cycles, and deposits are 1.99% for your first 10 billing cycles. This is a promotion. This is going to end. And this next part where it says this might increase to your standard rates if you do not pay your total minimum payment on time, or you exceed your credit limit. So you could lose those promotions if you don't follow all the rules. Then they have the standard rates, which this is pretty usual. So your purchases is an interest rate of 19.99%. A balance transfer is 21.99%, and access to checks and deposits is 21.99%, and cash advances are 24.99%. So that's what I was talking about in terms of cash advances is a really, really high interest rate. We've been talking a lot about like 15% or 7%. This is almost 25% basically. So then it says your standard rates will increase by 5% if your total minimum payment due is late more than once within 12 consecutive billing cycles. If you then pay each total minimum payment due on time in 12 consecutive billing cycles, your rate, following the rate increase, then you'll go back down to the standard rate. So, or If you keep missing it and you end up getting increase, then it slowly will inch back. So this is why it's important to be paying attention. So this is continuation of the information box, the interest-free grace period. So this is the part I was talking about, is that within the time frame. So you will not be charged interest on each new purchase for a minimum grace period of 21 days if you pay the new balance total in full by the total minimum payment due date for the account statement on which the new purchase first appears. You will always be charged interest on balance transfers, access checks, deposits, and cash advances from the date such transactions occur. So only if you're purchasing something, if you're buying something directly on your credit card, you have 21 days, you have 3 weeks to pay it back before they start charging you interest. Everything else, they charge you interest as soon as you do it. So this is also why cash advances aren't great, because you take that money out and you're being charged interest at that high rate immediately. You have a grace period where you can just pay back everything within that, by that due date on your bill, so that you don't end up having to pay any interest. Then your minimum payment is generally, there's generally a certain amount. For this card, it's a minimum of $15. If your current payment is either 1% of your total new balances plus all new interest charges, and if your new balances total is less than $15, then you always pay a $15 minimum. So you're always paying at least $15. If 1% of your new total balance is more than that, then you're going to pay that 1% of the total balance. But that is not paying off very much of what you owe. 1% is not very, very much, especially if you're getting charged 19.99% in interest, right? Then there's rules about foreign currency conversion. So we talked about how currency rates are, that they change day to day. So credit card companies do a set how much they're going to charge you to convert their money. And then annual fees, this one has no annual fee. Then that tells you some other fees. So these fees will be charged on the day of the transaction or the event occurs. So we have transaction fees. So if you have a wire transfer, it's going to be a wire. You're going to 1% of the purchase amount. You're going to pay to the bank with a minimum of $7.50. Same with balance transfers, access checks or deposits, or cash advance. So if you are paying if you're getting cash advance, you're taking out $100 from your credit card. You're going to pay 1% of that amount. Say you take out $1,000 from your credit card, you're going to pay 1% of that amount. On top of taking that $1,000 out, you're now going to owe them 1%, which is $10 to the bank, with always at least paying $7.50. So if you take only $100 out, you're not going to pay $1, you're going to pay $7.50 just for allowing for them, letting you take that money out. Plus you're going to always pay the interest immediately of the amount that you take out. This is why cash advances are dangerous. And then other account fees, if you go over your credit limit, then you pay $25 for going over your limit. If you have a return payment, so it means that you said that you were going to pay it, you send the money and then you pay with a check and then the check bounces off, they charge you $20 for that. If you want extra copies of your account statements, they charge you $2.50 for that. If you have an inactive credit balance, so if your account is inactive and has a credit balance, we will charge you annually on the date that your account was last active of lesser either the credit balance or $25. So if you don't use a credit card very much, you forget about it and you owe them $5, they're going to charge you $25 every year until you pay off that $5. If you forget about it and you have $250 on that account, then they're going to charge you $250. No, sorry, they're going to charge you $25, lesser, not more, sorry, lesser. Either they're going to charge you the credit balance if it's under $25, or they're going to charge you $25, my bad. Then they just keep adding it. You keep ending up making it bigger and bigger and bigger how much you owe. So this is why it's super important to read all that fine print, because it's different depending on the company and the card that they're offering you. So don't skip it, read it. So minimum payments is the next part that's important to understand. Paying only the minimum means it will take longer to chip away at your balance. You're going to, it'll take, if you only pay the small amount, remember, they're adding interest, and everything you don't pay back, they add interest to, so then it compounds, it gets bigger and bigger. So if your interest rate is excessively high, your minimum payment may not even cover the interest charge for your month. So you might not even be paying anything off of what you've borrowed. You might just be paying interest. So it's really, really important to only pay minimum payments if you really have to. It's better to pay off full balances. So here, looking at a credit card statement. So it tells you the statement period. It tells you when they printed off so August 6th, 2019 is when they printed off this bill. And then you can see your payment is due by August 27th. That's the grace period. And your total minimum payment for this one is $10. That's the minimum payment that you need to pay. And then here it looks like, okay, so you made a payment. It looks like previous balance, you didn't have nothing else that you're carrying over. So you have no interest. Payments or credits, you paid off $500. And purchases and charges, you bought $923.52, which means that now you owe, your new balance is $423.52. That's how much your new balance is. That's how much money you owe. So you could pay just the $10, but then you're going to still owe $413.52. It's much better to pay off all of this amount, pay off your entire balance. Then here's that credit limit and the available credit. This person has a limit of $15,000, so they still have over $14,000 that they can borrow. You don't have to borrow it just because you can. Then it gives you, there's lots of information about your interest rates and other things about the credit card, but this is a super important part that tells you how much you owe and when you owe it. Then there's always lots of information that tells you how to pay it and various other details you can read. And then here, this tells you the transactions. So when you made it, where you made it, and the how much for. So this is important to keep an eye on to figure out, make sure that nothing's wrong, make sure there's no charges that aren't yours. And then usually there is a bill, a portion that you can detach and mail back if you want to, that shows, again, your due date, your minimum payment, and your total balance that you could pay. And then it also tells you how else you can pay it. You can pay it online, through your bank, or by mailing something to the Scotiabank. So, and then you can just have more transaction pages. So sometimes you have lots of pages. So that's why you might have a whole bunch of pages for your bill. All right, so let's try to calculate this. How much interest John Doe will owe if he does not make any more purchases or payments until September 27th, 2019. So he misses his due date. He doesn't pay anything. So but he hasn't added anything else. So how much is he going to have to owe in interest? So we are going to use that compounding interest formula. So A equals P times 1 plus R over N, also the exponent NT. So A is what we're looking for. P is how much he owes, his balance. He did not pay this $423.52. So that is the principal amount that interest is being calculated on. The rate is its purchases, so it's 19.99% or 0.1999. Your N, they don't tell us here. In the fine print, they're going to tell you that it's daily, so it's 365. Credit cards are generally daily, which is 365. And your T, well, to go from August 27th to September 27th is 30 days. So it's 30 days out of 365 because it is per year. So then you're going to put those numbers into your formula, $423.52 times 1 plus 0.1999 divided by 365 all to the exponent of 365 times 30 over 365. And I'm going to then put this into my Desmos calculator. You can use your own calculator. Probably not going to do this in your brain, mentally. I mean, so just really important to make sure that you have all the parts and that so you're going to end up, your total amount is $430.53. Now remember, did we answer the question? Let's calculate how much interest. So interest is equal to your amount, take away your principal. So $430.53, take away $423.52. So that means that you're going to owe in interest $7.01 is what John Doe owes in interest, just from not paying his credit card and carrying that balance. So that's just what he has to owe just for not paying off. This is why it's important to pay off your balance. So now you can do the questions on page 6, questions 4 and 5. So that's a lot. We covered a lot. But you can do it. So let's consolidate. Let's go over what we covered today. So we did lesson 11, which is credit cards. So it's important to understand the vocabulary and how to apply. If you're going to be using a credit card, which we know is beneficial in terms of establishing a credit history and getting a credit score, understanding what the words mean, what all of that lingo means, it's super important so that you're not agreeing to things that you don't actually want to agree to. So it's important to know what all of the different language means, even though it isn't necessarily language that you use a lot. It's also important to understand how to apply and how to apply accurately, giving truthful information about so that they can know where you live, to make sure that you really are a human being who lives in Canada and are real and not doing fraud, having an income so you share your employer so they know that you are readily employed so that you are able to pay back what it is that you borrow. These are all important things. So then when you are choosing a credit card, you decide what is best for you. Don't just take the first credit card that's offered to you. You decide what makes most sense. Just because you're at a gas station and they're doing a thing where they're like, fill out this application and you can get $10 off your gas. That's an incentive, but you want to decide, is that credit card actually useful for you? It may not be. So looking at the interest rate, looking at the annual fees, thinking about if there's a credit score tracker, thinking about if they require a security deposit. Are there any reward system that is going to be beneficial to you? These are all things to consider. Where are you going to use it? Is it a good one? Is it a card that makes sense for you based on your needs? This is super important. Different cards are going to be good for different people. And then what are the true costs of borrowing? So if you pay only the minimum payments back, then you're getting interest is being charged immediately on your balance in all new purchases. So if you're not paying back your full balance, you're getting interest being charged on everything. So that grace period is only if you start off with 0. So you can use your credit card and not have a annual fee credit card. And then every month, if you pay your full amount by the due date in that grace period, that means you're not being charged anything to use that credit card. You are not being charged a fee just for having it, and you're not being charged any interest if you just pay off the entire balance. So you're getting the convenience of it, but you're not getting charged any of the extra money. So how I use my credit card is that I only use it for money that I already have, unless it's an emergency, and sometimes, rarely, I have to do that. But generally, if I'm using my credit card, I have the money. It's not because I don't have the money. I have the money. This hasn't always been the way that I've had to use it in my life. Sometimes I've had to use it and I have had to carry balances and it sucks. And it's really hard to get out of having all that debt. So it's really important to use a credit card wisely and consciously so that you don't get stuck under debt. Only putting things on your credit card that you know you have the money to cover is going to set you up for the most success and mean that you're not paying lots of interest charges and that you're actually going to be able to pay off the money that you've borrowed. So then remembering that the compound interest formula that we did in lesson 9, which is challenging, it's a hard piece, is the way that the interest is calculated on credit cards. So hopefully with your success criteria, you're feeling like you can identify the pros and cons of credit cards, because there's definitely both. You can explain the annual fees, the APRs, cash advance fees, and minimum payments. So understanding all of the different parts of ways that they charge you money. And you can calculate the cost of carrying a balance. You can calculate not actually paying off any of your, or only paying the minimum balance, and then how much you still owe in the long run. So that is credit cards. This is a super important conversation, super important topic, because it is something that many people have credit cards and use credit cards and don't understand how they work, and therefore end up paying a bunch of money that they don't necessarily have or did not intend. So definitely spend a good amount of time with this lesson and make sure you truly understand all of the parts. If you have any questions, if you're confused about anything, please reach out and talk to me. I'm happy. This is my job. My job is to support you, to help you understand this. This is my goal, is to make sure that you truly understand what it is that we're talking about. So please reach out. You can call me at the office at 807-737-1488, extension 2209, or 1-800-667-3703. You can email me at bronwyn.slate, and that's spelled BRONWYN.SLATE@nnec.on.ca. You can connect with me through Facebook, where my name is B-Slate Wahsa. Lots of people ask me questions through Facebook, so please reach out to me there if that's where you're comfortable with. And you can find all of this lesson, the recording of this lesson, on my YouTube channel at B-Slate Wahsa. Remember, it's in the playlist MEL3E. So you have lots of access to resources. Please reach out. This is super important. This is when people grumble about school not teaching you anything that is useful, that math class doesn't teach you anything that's useful or important. This is the type of lesson where this is useful and important. This is actually a teacher taking time to show you important things about things that can make a really big difference in your life financially. So pay close attention to go back and review this lesson, pause things, slow things down if you need to. I always have to pack it a lot. Read carefully the information in your booklet and reach out to me and connect if you need support and help. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a lovely day, and Miigwech.